It's time to strap in and get ready for the front stretch. Presented by Joe's Karting. Dan and Dirk are live in the studio today, ready to hear from you at 402-573-0590.
Well, a good morning to you, race fans, and welcome to the front stretch, presented by Joe's Karting at Council Bluffs, online at joeskarting.com. Fast-paced white-knuckle racing just across the river on 23rd Avenue in Council Bluffs. Get over to Joe's Karting today, do a little bit of fast-paced white-knuckle racing. Indoor karting facility. You couldn't get more of a contrasting 3 days.
We
started out with...
2 of the days were 1 day.
Yeah.
So it was a contrasting 2 days, even though it took 3.
As James Essex said, the National Weather Service issued a gold bond day on Thursday and Friday. It was miserable. It was hot. I don't need to tell anybody else. Everybody experienced it.
I was an hour and a half Thursday. It was like when I walked to my truck, it's like I'd been swimming.
Yeah. And then yesterday was good. It was nice. That cloud cover really helped out by about 10, 20 degrees.
30, 40 degrees. I was ready to put a coat on.
Oh, it was nice. And then I wake up this morning and walk outside and I go, what is going on? But, that's part of living in the world and in the Midwest. As my dad would always say, you never know when the Alberta Clipper is going to come through, and I think she came through last night.
Well, you have all 4 seasons in one day sometimes.
Yeah. Listen, today's show, we got a big one lined up for you as we are going to recap the race last weekend at New Hampshire. We're going to put a cap on the Crewman for a Day contest presented by Rick Havenridge of Wealth Partners. And we will also talk about the Silver Dollar Nationals, a little bit of a race that went on the last 3 days over at I-80 Speedway.
No, did I miss it?
No big deal. Only $263,000 paid out, which, by the way, is kind of interesting. That's like starting pay for the Daytona 500, just kind of retrospective. Actually, that's a little bit more. I think starting pay is like $195 to $200 for the.
I was gonna say I think it's a crack over 200.
That's what they would call tow money if you finish tailing Charlie at the Daytona 500. I remember that year that Tony Stewart completed like 3 or 4 laps. He still got like $165,000 payday. But big 3 days at I-80 Speedway. We'll recap the action there. We'll get audio from the top 3 finishers in both series, plus Ben Schaller, who was the highest at finishing. Oh, I don't want to ruin the surprise for those of you who missed it, but lots of audio coming from that. In turn number 3, we will sit down with Stan Cisar and recap the racing action last night at Eagle. Those guys ran a nice, incredibly efficient show. Stan told me they were done with their features by 9:45. It's insane to think they were able to get through all of that in that amount of time, but good news for Stan, because then he was able to drive over to I-80, which I'm sure a lot of that fan base was able to drive over to I-80 and get the feature in. So,
well, I wonder. We'll have to ask Stan exactly what their car count was, if it was down a little bit, if a lot of their drivers were in the I-80 grandstands.
Well, and the heat, too. I noticed that I-80's been down just a tick, and I'm talking like 5-10 cars on the weekly racing action, just because these drivers, either they're on vacation or it's just too hot to go out there and compete. I mean, it's miserable, and that's not any fun when you're trying to have when racing's a fun thing for you to do, it's not any fun to sit in the pits for 10 hours and just sweat and it'd just be miserable. So, there's probably a lot of guys that are taking time off. But
I think we did okay. I didn't see the ambulance roll to cool anybody down, from heat exhaustion or anything. So that part actually went pretty good. The drivers did a good job of staying hydrated.
Thursday we had an issue with one of the safety crew members, but at I-80 at the Silver Dollar Nationals, that Thursday night opening action. But we'll recap Eagle in turn number 3, and then in turn number 4 we will kind of pick up some of the loose ends, just in case I forget to say it, because we get so busy with doing stuff on the front stretch and talking to people that things tend to fall through the cracks. But Jimmie Johnson announced this morning they are going to be moving to the back of the field, starting at the end, because they made a gear change in that number 48 car for Jimmie Johnson today at Indianapolis. So Fantasy League fans, make note that Jimmie Johnson is headed to the back for today's race at Indy.
Yeah, you won't get those passing points, so you get the points from where he started.
Right, and he will
supposed to start.
He's supposed to roll off the grid in 4th, so that's where he is going to be credited with his starting position. But again, today, the race at Indy, Jimmie Johnson will be starting from the back. All right, let's talk about the race last weekend at New Hampshire. It was the end of our 5-week contest, and everybody wanted Matt Kenseth. Is it Kenseth?
No, there was really up towards the top. Everybody, like the top 6 or 7, all had different. No, the top 5 had different people.
Okay.
And then 6th and 7th repeated, and then you had a whole ball that had the Truex train.
Yeah. He's an incredible. It's really the most popular picks most weekends are Larson and Truex, which you completely understand because those two have just dominated the series this year. I think Larson has been a conceived domination. He was leading in the points for a while. A point fine kept him back, but he's been doing well. But I mean, Truex he's the true dominant one so far this year.
Well, it's really weird that he's in a Joe Gibbs car, but Joe Gibbs' team can't win.
Yeah.
But did break the ice.
Well, and, I hate that term that he's in a Joe Gibbs car because Cole Pern in that team set that car up. So even though Joe Gibbs built the chassis and it's a Toyota engine, that's Furniture Row's technology and information. And we learned end of last year, Jimmie Johnson's statement that those data transfers don't go both ways a lot of the times. The deal that Hendrick was sour on with Stewart-Haas Racing was that it was a one-way data transfer. Stewart-Haas didn't have to share backwards. That Hendrick just gave them what Hendrick found, and Stewart-Haas got to keep it and build on it, and it was kind of a one-way deal for them. So maybe that's the deal that Joe Gibbs has with Furniture Row. I imagine if that is the case, which I don't know for sure, but if that is the case, that deal's probably going to end up changing shortly.
Well, and it could also be that the setups could be exactly the same, and Martin Truex just handles it better.
Yeah. Back to the Crewman for a Day contest. Martin Truex Jr. was the most popular pick on the day with 10 contestants taking him. Then Jimmie Johnson was second with 6th. Kyle Busch was third with 3 picks. Kenseth, Jamie McMurray, Joey Logano, Chase Elliott on down. They all had 2 picks. But your finishing order for that race. First off, let me get your thoughts on what do you want? Are we calling it the VHT? Are we calling it the sticky grip, the sticky strip? Are we calling it the grip? What are we? Why can't we come up with a unified name for it?
Well, because I mean, the stuff is basically, they said it was a combination of VHT, which is a traction treatment that's been around. I know we used it in the 80s on our drag tires, and it was legal.
Yeah.
And they were mixing it with methanol, I believe they said. It was an alcohol form. I think it was methanol. And they didn't say what the ratios were that they were mixing it with, but they showed the little demonstration where he had it in a syrup bottle and he poured it on pit road, and he poured like maybe an ounce out, and it spread out into the patch that was, 8 or 10 inches wide, and you could literally look at the color and the gloss from the light and look at it change over like 2 or 3 minutes. And he just said in 5 minutes it turns into glue. So when we put it on our tires and it was just straight VHT, you rolled it on literally with a big paint roller. You poured it in a pan and laid under the car, and one guy spun the tire around, the other guy rolled the tire, and you got your tire saturated in it, and then you just let the car sit. You didn't put the car down off the jack stands. You let it sit overnight. It sat for like 12 hours, and it would cure into the tires, and you were good for like 5 runs on the car. Yeah. And then the next week you're back doing it again.
What are your thoughts on how it worked? Because they did something interesting. We've seen tracks treat the top groove. We've seen tracks treat the bottom groove. They did both, and they left the middle groove untreated.
Well, but the stuff must transfer to the tires a little bit, because you saw a lot of guys running in the middle.
Yeah.
The more the race went on. So
and they said that as the race wore on, that stuff wore off, and so the stickiness just kind of wore. And there's probably something they'll end up figuring out in a year or two on how to get that stuff to stay longer. But that's just the way. I mean, that's going to be tough to figure out, is how to get that stuff to stay sticky, because just the natural friction is going to wear it off, especially with as much tire rubber is laying down probably on top of it.
Well, I think part of that, and again, I'm not a chemist or anything, but some of that might have had to do with the actual heat that would build up in the tires.
Yeah.
Because Ryan Newman had said during practice there'd be times when you'd be on a roll and you'd have a line of that stuff and you'd really be clicking off some good times, and then all of a sudden you'd go in on your same line and be, there's nothing here this time.
Yeah.
So they'd noticed that in the practice evidently, but my guess would be the actual heat buildup in the tires caused that.
Finishing order for Overton's 301 at New Hampshire. Denny Hamlin ends up picking up win number 2 on the season. Win number 1. And first win for Joe Gibbs Racing. Can't believe we're saying that. It's his 30th win in his Monster Energy Cup Series career, but Joe Gibbs Racing finally finds victory lane.
And dang, that was a big lobster.
Yeah.
What they say? I thought they said 44 pounds.
Oh man, that'd have been so good.
Yeah, for
he gets to eat
the
it,
whole
right?
family.
He gets to eat it, right? Okay.
Yeah, they said this isn't one of those good to end stories for the lobster. That lobster's going down, baby.
Kyle Larson had an incredibly fast car, but just could not catch Denny Hamlin, Martin Truex Jr., and Larson ends up finishing second. Truex Jr. finishes third, Kenseth fourth, and Kevin Harvick rounds out your top 5. Daniel Suarez, Clint Bowyer, Kurt Busch, Brad Keselowski, and Jimmie Johnson round out your top 10. Rough day for Joey Logano, and his season continues to take a turn from the worst to just getting even worse. And just when you think it can't get any worse, it does.
That encumbered win had some bad karma with it.
Absolutely. He finishes 37th, and now I believe he is 51 or 52 points out of the cut. Which, Dirk, counting today's race, we've only got 7 races left.
He's basically got to win.
Absolutely. 52 points to catch up in 7 races. That is a monster of amount of points. Not that it can't be done, and if a guy goes on a run and has, rattles off nothing but top 5s, he's got a better chance because other guys are going to fall off, have issues, that kind of stuff.
Well, and he's got to race the whole race. He's got to get stage points, too.
Absolutely. And so he's got a long road to go. And what a story it would be that Joey Logano, since he has joined Penske, has just been on fire. He's been so fast, so good. They've had an attitude to that team, and now it just seems like instead of leaning forward and they're on the line, and their linemen ready to pounce, they're back on their heels. And they're almost playing defense or prevent.
Well, I don't think they are now. I think they were a few weeks ago. But right now, I think it's all hands on deck and let's go forward. But several weeks ago, we need to finish in the top 8 or something like that. And they weren't, you know. It was like they were just, like you said, playing that prevent defense and giving up touchdown after touchdown. But I think last week, I actually think they were trying to race hard and go forward. But it just didn't work out for them. Martin
Truex Jr. ends up taking the big points lead. After the fine last week, Truex now for Kyle Larson, who dropped him out of the chase. Points lead. Thank you. Playoff points lead. Martin Truex Jr. now gains a 38-point advantage. Again, we just talked about Joey Logano having a big deficit. Now Larson, if he's hoping to get those 15 playoff bonus points for winning the regular season, he's going to have to not only start rattling off sweeps, winning all 3 stages, which includes getting the win on the day at these racetracks. He's also going to need Martin Truex Jr. to bumble.
Yeah, well, Martin was only 1 point behind when the penalty hit, so he only gained 4 points literally at New Hampshire. But Martin shows no signs of slowing down. He's not going to back up. He's going to keep running top 5. He's going to keep getting the stage points.
Okay, say that again, because I'm a little bit confused. Because I agree with you. When Larson's penalty was assessed, he fell to like -2 or 3 points behind Martin Truex Jr., right?
No. Martin Truex Jr., I believe, was only 1 point behind him before the penalty was assessed.
Okay, that makes sense.
So then he dropped down. So then he went from +1 to -34.
You're right. That's right. Yeah, I remember that now. So that is a lot of points to make up.
Oh, that's a huge
only
penalty.
7. Yeah.
Huge penalty.
Now, with the stage points, he can. If he could start, if we're talking about him being Kyle Larson, if he could rattle off stage 1, stage 2 wins and sweep the weekend by getting the race win, that's 60 bonus, or that's 60 points on the day. That's a big advantage to it, but that also takes into a factor that Martin Truex Jr. doesn't finish second.
Well, Martin Truex Jr. is going to need to break.
Yeah.
He's going to need no stage points, and a 37th place finish or something.
And, really the only place I can see that coming, being able to predict forward, tracks that could really throw wild cards is Watkins Glen. it's really easy to get into the corner slow and have a guy turn you and throw you into the wall.
Well,
I think it's just easier than most. You have Michigan, Pocono. There's so many races to come that mechanical issues could creep up. But I think I could see Watkins Glen being that one track that maybe it's a 10% chance rather than an 8% chance.
Where the driving's going to take him out, an accident type deal.
Right.
But yeah, the rest of it, I mean, those mechanical gremlins, we've seen them happen. He's blown some engines and stuff. So you don't know whenever that stuff's going to creep up and get you.
When we come back, we are going to recap the Silver Dollar Nationals, the 3-day race weekend. And then in turn number 3, we will talk with Stan Cisar from Eagle Raceway. Turn number 4, we're going to recap. We're going to pick up some of the loose ends that we dropped off on the Crewman for a Day contest. We'll cover that in turn number 4 because, well, once again, we talked a little bit too long, and we got to get to talking about dirt track action. We'll be back in turn number 2 here on the front stretch.
This week's young gun on the front stretch is 11-year-old Michael Hindera. Hindera is in his second year of dirt racing as he follows in the footsteps of his role models Rick Hollingsworth, Joey Danley, and Shaylee Bade. Michael drives the number N53 in honor of his grandfather who passed away at 53 years old. In his rookie season, Hindera finished runner-up in the rookie cage class point standings at Mini E Raceway. This season, Hindera moved into the Junior 1 class at Mini E and Little Sunset Speedway, where he's found victory lane 5 times and leads the point standings at Little Sunset. Someday, Michael wants to start racing a sprint car and eventually tour with the World of Outlaws. Make sure to keep your eye out for Michael Hindera driving the M53, Dave Verovka Woods Brothers Realty, Carpet Land, CNL Automotive, Iron Height Construction, or Junior 1 cage karts at a dirt track near you. This week's Young Gun was presented by Craig Kelly at IKS Injury Attorneys.
For almost 70 years, Sarah Kelly Sewell have been Nebraska's premier personal injury firm. Race drivers, fans, and their families have been calling Sunset Speedway's Craig Kelly for over 30 years. The IKS firm focuses first on your healing and appropriate medical care, then they focus on getting you great results. Craig Kelly and his experienced team at IKS stand ready to handle your injury claims in both Nebraska and Iowa. If you or a loved one have been injured, Google Craig Kelly or call him at 402-391-4000.
Are you looking to book your next outing? Look no further than Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs. Located just north of Bass Pro Shop, Joe's Karting can handle outings of well over 100 plus people. Bachelor parties, corporate outings, team building, birthday parties, and much more. Give Buddy a call today and reserve your outing. Joe's will even work with local restaurants to cater your event. Book yours today at joeskarting.com. That's karting with a K. It's time to get to Joe's and find out what everyone already knows.
Dan and Dirk are rolling into turn 2 with a little attitude on the front stretch.
402-573-0590. We'd love to hear from you on your thoughts of the 3 days of the Silver Dollar Nationals. $263,000 were paid out. We talked to Steve Francis, the Kentucky Colonel, before the race on Saturday night. I had a really good conversation with him. The I-80 did a Facebook Live with him, and I was really impressed with kind of his eloquence. You know, we find those guys every once in a while where we're like, he could explain things really clearly and really simply, so we need to sit down and have a good conversation with him.
Well, he's a Southern gentleman.
Right, and one of the things he talked about was probably the thing he liked the most about the Silver Dollar Nationals. It's really sexy to say, sorry, I'm out of breath, I just ran 300 yards to my desk. Maybe not exactly 300 yards, but
maybe 30 feet.
I had to get some water. But Steve talked about the thing he really impressed him about the Silver Dollar Nationals. It's sexy to sit there and say that we pay $53,000 to win. When most tracks, when they do that, then they'll pay $10,000 for second, $5,000 for third, $4,000, $3,000, $2,000. It's what he kept calling, and I got a real kick out of it, was Dolly Parton, the Dolly Parton purse. And you could figure it out for your own what that means. But
well, for those that can't,
he said the great things. I don't think the FCC will let me. For the great thing about the Silver Dollar Nationals purse was it was $53,000. I believe 2010. It was much better stacked.
Fifth place paid like a feature would normally to win.
Right. And that was, so he was really impressed with that. And I think that's the big thing to talk about with the Silver Dollar Nationals. You know, you've got everything that the Kaziskis in that track put so much time and effort into the Silver Dollar Nationals, making it worthwhile for the drivers to show up and the fans. beginning to build an atmosphere. It's no longer heavy on the race. There was pre-race concerts, there was post-race concerts, there was all sorts of fun stuff that the fans could experience for the price of admission. And just like we're talking about with what NASCAR and some of these NASCAR tracks are doing, like Iowa Speedway, where they're offering the concerts after the races.
They didn't charge anything for the sun tanning and sweating.
Yeah, absolutely. That was, although I'm sure if they could find a way, they would, because I sure as heck would. There was a lot of, I went 3 shades darker this weekend alone.
They did charge you in concessions to refuel your body for more sweating. And
All right, the 3 days of the Silver Dollar Nationals kicked off on Thursday night with the Malvern Bank Super Late Model Series paying the largest purse, the largest winning they have ever paid, $5,300 to win. It all goes in the same theme of 53, being the number that Bob Koziski drove, that Joe ended up driving, and now Andrew drives. But that's a special number to the Koziskis, along with 52 and 35. Those are all numbers that the brothers and the dads drove. So, but the Malvern Bank Series, what a great race that one was on Thursday night. But you just know when Kyle Burke shows up, it's almost a battle for second. I mean, Kyle has been a little bit off this year, and that trailer fire probably contributed
got him
quite
behind
a
the
bit.
eight ball a little bit.
But man, he was determined on Thursday night, and he ends up winning it. He not only wins that, but he also wins the Storm Specialist Solutions jackpot of $777. So he ended up taking home just over $6,000 in prize money that night, and then comes back on Saturday night, qualifies through the B, finishes third in the last chance qualifier for the Lucas Oil Late Model guys, and wins $1,500 for finishing third. In that race, he has the option to take the money or go home. Take the money and go home, or cash in the money and start at the end of the field.
I'm going home.
One guy said that, but Kyle Burke said, you know what? It pays $1,700 to finish this race at the end of the field. So I'm going to take the extra $200 and I'm going to run 80 laps in this feature. And I'll have to look through the finishing charts of where he ended up finishing, but he's there to race. He wants to go do that 80 laps. He wants to try hard to try to get that win. And I thought he had a pretty competitive car. Frankly, I think he had a more competitive car than he had in previous years.
Well, he's been in the race because Joe does a good job taking care of the local guys in this race. He has races during the first couple months of the year. If you win these races, you get a provisional into the feature. Well, Kyle didn't have that this year,
right?
So he did get it. Still get into the race, and like you said, he went ahead and forego his $1,500 purse from the non-qualifiers race, and went ahead and ran in the big show, just as Brandon Shepherd did, who's the only winner of that race that has made that move work. And we did talk to him, so we've got that coming up later. But you had some local flavor. Kyle did drop out towards the end of the 80-lap feature. He finally got lapped, and he went ahead and pulled off. But
and let's recap what happened on Thursday night before we get to Friday night and Saturday night's action. But so Kyle Burke ends up winning the Malvern Bank Series race, takes home the $5,300 to win, and then he won the Select Storm Solution Specialist $777. By the way, if you're confused as to why I'm saying that, Luke Cochran now has a new roofing company that he's getting ready to announce, and it's Storm Solution Specialist, and he's the one that's been paying out this stuff for a long time, not his previous company. So we're going to give credit to the company that he now has. Side note, back onto the action again. And then the Nebraska 360s were in action that same night. A nice field of cars, a great race. And, man, Cody Ledger is just coming on strong.
Yeah, he's got 10 top 5 finishes in a row now. So that's pretty impressive.
He's just been so good. The story going into it was Jack Dover getting hurt last week at Eagle Raceway and destroying his car. Coming back in a friend's car, and he'd won that Thursday night race 4 years in a row. But the Gremlins continue to chase that team. They've had engine issues, they've had luck issues, they've destroyed cars, they've had just about everything. Which that kind of seems to be Jack's MO. Every once in a while, he goes into this dip where he has issues, and then I don't know. He puts his head down, he gets determined, he gets mad, and he pulls right back out again. He starts rattling these wins off again.
Yeah, I mean, you really can't say a whole lot about this one. When you're in a borrowed car, it's anybody's guess what's going to happen. You know, it wasn't his car doing his own maintenance, et cetera, et cetera. But, you know, it was good that he was able to get back in the car after only 4 or 5 days because I didn't see the tumble last Saturday, but I understand it was quite
Scary.
a spectacular-looking event, and he went and spent some time getting checked out and took care of things.
Terry McCarl ends up picking up the win, but boy, he sure had to earn it by holding off Cody Ledger. Ledger caught him with about 3 to go, and I thought that was going to be enough for Ledger to get by, but T-Mac was able to hold his line and really do what a lot of talented drivers know how to do, and that's take away the second placeman's line.
Well,
where Cody was fast, Terry slid up and took it away from him, so he wasn't able to have that advantage. Got the 2,000 to win. Ledger ends up getting the Hard Charger Award for, I think he, how far back did he start?
I think he started 9th, I think.
Or no, I'm sorry, Danny Lasowski ended up getting the Hard Charger Award. Danny started at the end of the race because he had gremlin issues, and he wasn't able to get that car working during the heats and the B features, or the heats. So he ends up starting at the end of the field and finishes 3rd or 4th. Great run for Lasowski. All right, Friday night was qualifying action for the USMTS and Lucas Oil late models. Let's move on to Saturday night, and we had some terrific late model and USMTS features. Hate to break anybody's bubble, but Rodney Sanders finally didn't win the USMTS modified race. 3rd place ended up being Cade Dillard, and we met up with Cade for a quick interview.
Coming home in 3rd out of Roebling, Louisiana, car number 97 of the Thriller, Cade Dillard. And Cade, man, it looked like at one point you were going to get up there and get the win tonight. Not to be, but still a solid podium.
Yeah, we had a decent car. Hopefully we can get a less top-dominant track here eventually on these big money races. And I felt like before top got so dominant, we had a really good car. But once it got up there like that, we just wasn't as good. But, you know, 3rd, we'll take it. There's a lot of tough cars here. Thank all the fans for coming out. It's cool to race in front of this many people.
Sounded like he wasn't used to racing in that big of a crowd, in front of that big of a crowd. About 4 or 5, maybe 6,000 people on hand that night for grandstands.
I don't know if the place holds that many, but the stands were full. So, you know, it was a great crowd and a noisy crowd because I sat last night back by the scale on the back straightaway and could hear them. Hear them roaring at times.
Despite the heat, they were rowdy all weekend. Ben Shelton actually was doing the post-race interviews. We weren't able to get down and talk to the USMTS guys, and Rodney Sanders ended up coming home 2nd. First time he's finished anything other than winner at the Silver Dollar Nationals.
At I-80 Speedway. And the one thing that you mentioned earlier about Terry McCarl taking away Cody Ledger's line, when Sanders got to Ryan Gustin, and he had the car, and he had enough to pass him at one point. But Ryan started taking his line away. About every other lap, he would dive down and come low in 3 and 4 and take the line away from Rodney. But Rodney would have driven by him if he hadn't done that.
Coming home in the 2nd spot, Rodney Sanders. And Rodney, man, you didn't get the win tonight, but still a solid 2nd place run. Seemed like if you were going to get him, it was going to be the restarts, and you just couldn't make it stick.
Yeah, I mean, Ryan drove a heck of a race there. I mean, we were pretty good through the middle, but I was too tight throwing the cushion. But, you know, it's a good run for us. I mean, you know, we ran pretty decent in the late model, so it's been a good weekend so far, and hopefully we can, you know, get a good solid finish in the late model.
And again, that was Rodney Sanders coming home in 2nd. But the Reaper, Ryan Gustin, probably a crowd favorite. He had such a good run a few years ago in his late model at I-80 Speedway, but just the turn 4 wall was a little too narrow for him, and he made contact with it, and he ended up finishing at the back of the field. That was a couple of years ago.
Yeah,
after,
it wasn't the turn 4 wall.
To the front.
He drove in, and he tried to drive underneath, and I don't mean lower than underneath Kyle Burke.
That's right. It was Kyle Burke that got his way, not the wall. But
anyways, he got in Kyle Burke's way from behind him. Kyle Burke did nothing wrong that night.
The big story for Ryan, a couple of months, it was about a month ago, he won a $50,000 to win USMT or a modified race, and when the big money shows are in town, this year Ryan's really showed up, and Ben Shelton really addressed that when he talked to him down in Victory Lane.
Well, Ryan, I know we call you the Reaper, but in 2017, maybe we need to just call you the Big Show, because when the big money's on the line, you put this number 19 in Victory Lane.
Yeah, it was an up-on-the-wheel racetrack there. I about fenced it down there a couple times. I got turning to the left a bunch. My glove got hooked on something. I couldn't get it back, and I thought I was going to eat the concrete for a second, but we didn't. It all worked out. We had a good hot rod. And, can't thank Jason Hughes and all these guys, Steve and Jay, and all the fine sponsors that get us where we're at.
It seemed like if anybody was going to get you, the only chance they had was the restarts. After a couple of laps, you could just drive away from them.
Yeah, I saw Rodney down there, and I figured he was going to be good. Obviously, he is here. But I don't know. I was just trying to hang on and not mess up.
To come here, 10,000 on the line, first I-80 win, and you end Rodney Sanders. As you said, he's dominated this place. What does that all mean here tonight?
That means a lot, to be able to, for him, especially for him to run second and put an end to a streak there. I feel good.
And good job for Ryan Gustin getting that win. Then we moved on to the Lucas Oil feature, and we were able to sit down with Kyle Bronson in Victory Lane later and talk to Kyle about his race. Standing in Victory Lane with one of the podium finishers, Kyle Bronson. Man, several laps in there. Probably about 60 of them. You had the fastest car, but just had a tough time during the restarts to keep up with McCreadie.
Yeah, definitely. He is really good, and that cushion was really fast up there, but kind of treacherous. And me, I went up there too early, I feel like, and got my tires a little hot, and then them guys started getting away from me a little bit, so I had to go back through the middle and just kind of drive easy and keep the car straight and get my tires back underneath me. And then at the end, we was going again. It was really good. Just a little snug tight, but overall, we was pretty good. Like I said, just got the tires a little too hot, a little too early, and I felt like that maybe was the outcome of the race.
Anything you could have done different? I mean, obviously you talk about if you could have come in, you'd have loosened her up just a little bit, but anything you're thinking back just moments ago you're out there racing that you could have tried a little bit different?
Yeah, like I said, my biggest deal right there, I just think I went too fast, too early, and got my tires, overheated my tires there. And then it took me about 15 laps to get my tires back underneath me, but then we went going good again. That's if I could have changed anything, maybe I just wouldn't have went so good so early, waited a little bit long and bought my time. But, these guys are so tough, you don't want to get them strung out either, so you got to pass them when you can. And third ain't bad, so we come a long ways from so third. We'll take that and move on to the next one.
Well, still a good payday at third place. I think it was $10,000 for third place. That's not a bad deal.
Yeah, it definitely helps paying the bills out here on this road, but third's only the second loser, so we got to get better and move to the next one.
It's got to be a tough thing to balance when you've got an 80-lap race in front of you, you got a fast car, and you want to go as fast as you possibly can, but there's a balance you've got to work on there.
Yeah, that's what separates the great drivers, that's where Scott and Brandon and Josh and them guys are McCreadie. All them guys are really good at saving their tires and knowing when to go, and I ain't raced many of these long races like this right here, so the more I race, I feel like the better I get, Maybe next year we'll be a little better off and try this deal again.
So, again, that was third place Kyle Bronson in the Lucas Oil feature. We moved on to second place, Brandon Shepard. We ended up losing the audio from it, so we had to steal it from Ben Shelton.
Coming home in the second spot, he only passed 30 cars. He's getting a quick selfie. We're gonna get a word with him. The driver out of New Berlin, Illinois, Brandon Shepard. And Brandon, the driver of the Rocket House car, we'll get you around front here. Man, you passed 30 cars. You wanted one more, and you just couldn't quite get it.
Yeah, we just, that just shows how good a team we got, man. We crashed this car pretty bad there in that first heat race last night and just put us behind. We had a really good race car all weekend. We just got behind, and, that says a lot about our team. There's no quitting any of these guys, and they, we crashed that thing the first heat, and these guys just never even batted an eye. We just fixed her and put her back together, and they were confident in me, and I was confident in them that they were going to get her fixed good. And congratulations to Timmy there. I didn't know if we had anything for him or not. Maybe if we didn't have that caution, I don't know. He was pretty good there, and he could turn down off the cushion a little bit better than I could. But just like I said, thankful for Mark Richards and Steve Baker and everybody at Rocket Chassis for giving me this opportunity. Valvoline, Gunner's Honey, Siebert Calf Ranches, Ace Metal Works, Salic Well Services, Kaiser Manufacturing, Integra Shocks and Springs, Durham Racing Engines, Little Brian, all the crew, Dan, Austin, Joel, Mark, like I said, Little Brian, and everybody that helps out on this race car, man. We couldn't be more thankful to be where we're at and, having the season that we're having. So, from where we started in the feature and how our weekend started, we'll take where we ended up, so.
Good run for Brandon Shepard, man. He came out of that last chance qualifier, and his car was fast. I'm going to probably, for my entire life, I don't think he had anything for Tim McCreadie. McCreadie was just so fast on the restarts, and then the lap times would start to even out. They'd both be run about 19.5, 19.4s. And I think, like McCreadie would talk about Tim McCreadie here in his Victory Lane speech, I think he would kind of chill off a little bit, which he would just... when you get out like that and you've got a 1.5 second lead, there's no need to keep pushing it and run your car into the ground or into the wall or into another car. You could chill out. And you kind of noted it. Sometimes that makes you faster.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the big things. If anybody ever watched Days of Thunder, where they were doing the experimenting and, Tom Cruise kept getting colder. Cole Trickle, kept getting told that, sometimes if you go slower, you will be faster.
Yeah.
And sitting back again in turn 3 like I was, McCreadie was off the gas, and I don't think he was using any brake. He was literally rolling a third of the way through the corner like he was trying to conserve gas, but it was saving all of his equipment. And as Brandon told us, even though we lost the audio, was he used up his stuff to get to second.
Yeah.
He just had nothing left, which is the same thing that Brunson had said, that he used his stuff up a little bit early if he'd have been a little more patient. But you can't be patient. You got to get up there,
right?
Especially
when you're starting with like Shepard. I mean, how patient can you be when you've got 30 cars in front of you?
Well, everybody that's won that last chance race in every one of these Silver Dollar Nationals is always, go big or go home, thrown the little check away and gone for the big one. He's the only one that's made it work. I mean, he still had a $20,000 payday.
Yeah. All right. Now we sat down with Tim McCreadie in Victory Lane for the Lucas Oil feature. In Victory Lane with the 2017 Silver Dollar Nationals winner, man, $53,000 to the rich. I don't think anybody had anything for you out there.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I was very happy in hot laps before the feature. I thought, man, we circle really well, and I don't got to hit the cushion, and I don't got to really overexert myself to try to bust off a lap. So, and lo and behold, they drove right to the front. And honestly, tonight a lot of guys could have probably put that thing up there. It was such an easy driving car, and I don't know if they're behind me close or not. I know this. I run hard every lap, and Philip was giving me signs. And when he gives me big, you're pulling away signs, I don't slow down. I just try to be smoother. I run just as hard, but I just try to smooth out. And, it was just our night. I want to thank Sweeteners and everybody. I forgot to thank them in the big one. I hope they don't get upset.
Well, hopefully they'll be listening to this.
Like 12, 15 years, so usually they're okay, but you never know.
We're real good in the casino parking lot on Thursday night.
Yeah, you should have seen it Friday when we were working on 2 cars and a generator, and it's been a trip from hell, man. We broke down on the side of the highway with some airlines on the truck that I fixed some of them, tried to at least, and then they had to bobtail back to a truck stop to get some stuff, and I changed a fuel pump on a generator, and that didn't fix it. It was shutting off the other night every 20 minutes, and no air conditioning out here. It's been really hell, like, on all of us, and the generator ran for 22 hours so far, which is amazing because for the last 3 weeks it ran for 22 minutes. So it's hopefully this is a start of smoothing everything out and going forward again.
You got enough money for a new generator.
Yeah, I hear you. I don't know the team though. I mean, it isn't. It's just like anything. I've lived this life with this truck and trailer since 2005, and my owner Ann and Carl Myers, they treat me really well, and I think we all realize that race car haulers don't win races. They make life comfortable when you're out on the road like we are, but what's wins races is the guys behind you like this and just the car being balanced and we wouldn't care if the damn thing shut off for 2 weeks now. So,
well, your car was there at the drop of the green. Like you said, you felt good in hot laps, and, I mean, you came straight to the front, and once you got there, there was not a challenge for you, not even on the restarts.
Well, I mean, like I said, I've never been good. Like I just can't slow down. I don't believe that riding. I ride, like I try to say, I drive as hard as I could, and I just try to smooth out. Like I said, I try not to slip the tires bad, but I enter as hard as I'm doing. I enter in that restart with how many laps ago when Brandon was second. I fired in there. I fired in or down there, and I started firing in down there. And I don't know if we got away from him that much or not. All I know is that I never saw him, and I thought, okay, thank God my crew chief, who is brand new, I've never had him as a crew chief. I had him as a good friend. Had enough you-know-whats to move me up just in case, and that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to gel a race team that is so new that it's amazing that we're running as good as we are.
Well, on a couple of those restarts, by the time you finished the restart lap, you had nearly a second lead, and then like you kind of said, you would just kind of smooth things out, take care of your equipment, and even things off.
Yeah, like I said, the beauty of our type of racing is you don't see nobody behind you. You don't know. You see a cruise signal, but I mean, when a guy puts his sticks out, this wide, I really don't know what that means. I mean, 10 car lengths, the only signal that I know is the one where you start together and you do this, and that means you're pulling away, and I got that a lot tonight, and that makes me happy. But like I said, when you get to lap traffic, you can't mess around and just take your time and trying to be smooth to pass these guys. You got to dive in there and get it done, so that's what I try to do.
I was back at the entrance to turn 3 all night, and when you did, like you said, stretched out, you tried to be smooth, you looked the perfect guy that goes slower to go faster, because you were not hammering into the corner at all. You rolled into the corner. I don't even know if you were hitting the brakes. Late on the gas?
I backed my corner up a good bit because I was bottoming out, getting in pretty good, and that's kind of what our cars do a little bit. So if you back it up and you can pay, I'm a guy that is not. I'll slide people, but I am not a deep diving and a heavy breaker like some of the guys that race. So I'm kind of like a big block modified. I'll back my corner up and get right front up on the brown or right rear up on the brown, and then I need to be able to pick the throttle up before probably the middle section of the corner and have a good smooth straight line up off. And what we've learned with the data is I take a lot different things than what a lot of these guys that race these cars for a living do, because I didn't grow up in them. And this is, like I said, one of the few deals where this Longhorn deal has kind of tailored it to me. Now, it might not work for everybody in a Longhorn, but for me personally, just some of the data and some of the things we've done has definitely made me more comfortable in these cars.
Well, good job, man. You've had a heck of a weekend. It's been a long one. You talked about it. It's been long. It's been hot. It's frankly been miserable, but you can celebrate now.
Thank you.
We're running out of time in turn 2. Shoot, we're only in turn 2. We're running out of show. Real quick, we sat down with the highest place finisher for Nebraska. That's Ben Schaller.
Well, apparently they might need to change my name to the Carp instead of the Barracuda, because I'm always bottom feeding it. So.
I was going to call you the Catfish. Let him eat.
Yeah. Well, finally got it around the bottom, and I was kind of disappointed with 14th. Kind of sounds stupid, but I wish I could have stayed up there. I think I was up to 12th. They're pretty close to the top 10 at one point.
And apparently
looks like we had a DNF.
Apparently the computer decided we don't need to hear from Ben. Yeah, I don't know what's going on with that, but all right. So Ben had a great race, and what Ben's been doing the last couple of weeks is bottom feeding. He can run that bottom groove around I-80 Speedway like it's nobody's business. And good job for him. He ends up finishing 14th. Tad Pospischel 18th, Corey Zeitner 22nd, and Kyle Burke 26th. We got to take a break. We'll come back in turn number 3 with Stan Cisar.
And all kinds of other tempting things. Great times, great food, get to Quaker Steak and Lube.
Quaker Steak and Lube is the official watering hole for the front stretch and the best place to catch all the NASCAR action today. Open at 11 a.m. with delivery available to Council Bluffs.
Great times, great food, get to Quaker Steak and Lube.
For almost 70 years, Sarah Kelly Sewell have been Nebraska's premier personal injury firm. Race drivers, fans, and their families have been calling Sunset Speedway's Craig Kelly for over 30 years. The IKS firm focuses first on your healing and appropriate medical care, then they focus on getting you great results. Craig Kelly and his experienced team at IKS stand ready to handle your injury claims in both Nebraska and Iowa. If you or a loved one have been injured, Google Craig Kelly or call him at 402-391-4000.
Feather the brake and get back to the gas. Dan and Dirk are headed into turn 3 on the front stretch.
Time to recap what happened last night at America's home track, Eagle Raceway, just down the track from I-80 Speedway. And joining us now, the voice of Eagle Raceway, along with Tom Grasso. Stan Cisar, how you doing, sir?
Hey, I'm doing great, man. It was great to make it up to I-80 and catch the tail end of the festivities last night at the SDN, and it's great to see Tim McCreadie win. He's been a favorite of mine for a lot of years. You know, I go back quite a ways, and I remember even his dad racing back in the big block modified days back in upstate New York. And Tim, as he said, he's a very smooth driver. And I think if you remember last year, we had our little pool going on who was going to win that deal. I think I had McCreadie in that deal, and he ran really good. I was just a year too early.
Well, I think judging by his fire suit, he has the same suit that he had back when you were racing with his dad.
Well, I'll tell you what, great to see Tim take the win. And like I said, very popular guy, and I know he works hard at it. He's been a competitor for a long time. and he even won the Chili Bowl one year. Hopped in a midget, went down there and won. So he's a very talented guy behind the wheel. Let's talk about America's home track. Another great night of racing down there. We gave away about 200 bicycles to some lucky kids on Kids Night last night. It's one of the races that everybody looks forward to every year down there, and the racing not only hot and heavy, on the track. It was beautiful night. It was great to have some cloud cover last night and a little breeze blowing, and kicking things off with that Hoosier Racing Tire IMCA Sport Modified Division. Sean Harker picks up the win, but it wasn't a gimme, that's for sure. Matt Andrews, he's been running up at the top just about every week here the last couple of weeks. Picked up a second place finish. Current points leader Trent Roth comes home third. Another youngster that continues to impress, Cole Wayman in car number 18T, only 14 years of age, his first year of racing weekly at Eagle Raceway in that Sport Modified Division. He picked up a win earlier on in the season, fourth place finish last night, and Derek Hall rounding out your top five finishers. So that's going to tighten that points race up a little bit. Trent Roth, your leader, Sean Harker currently in the number 2 spot. We moved up into the Valentino's IMCA Hobby Stock Division. Roy Armstrong was on a 2-race win streak last night, but he got as far as second. But the guy that picked up the win, and it was, I believe, his first win at Eagle Raceway, and it was a real happy crowd down there on the front stretch after the A feature. Brett Sadoff in car number 11B picked up the win. Roy Armstrong come home in the second spot. Cody Liefeld, another good run in the 24X, finishing third. Dave Carter was fourth, and Kenny Roberts rounding out the top 5 finishers in that hobby stock division. Armstrong currently second in the points. He's going to tighten that thing up just a little bit. And the positions 5 through 10, there was only about 4 points separating 5th through 10th. Sadoff sitting back in that 9th spot. He's sure to jump up a little bit after that victory last night. Another great race in a thing that's in the point standings. The thing's shaping up. Last night's A main event, and this guy's he's had a fast race car, for a lot of weeks. Just seemingly never can put things together. Had some mechanical issues once in a while. Arguably some of the toughest competition in that modified division week in, week out at Eagle. Anthony Roth picking up the win out of Columbus, Nebraska.
Hey,
Roth
good for him.
Roth sits back second in that point standings by 9 from the hitman Shane Hyatt. And I'll tell you what, Roth, it was the same kind of a deal. Just about every feature last night, with the exception of the sprint cars, it was one of those deals where they had to really work for it. And Anthony Roth and Chad Anderson, Chad has usually pretty much got Eagle wired, and he was a very close second. Those guys traded slide jobs on occasion, and a couple times things got a little bit rough. But Roth came out the victor last night. Chad Anderson comes home with a second place finish. Good run for Shane Hyatt. He's fought off some bad luck that he's had in recent weeks. Comes home third. The Wolfman, Justin Wolf, in the 4th place finish, and 200-time IMCA modified champion Johnny the Jet Sadoff rounding out your top 5 finishers. So modified division continues to not disappoint.
Is that an official champion count?
Well, it just seems like it. I'll tell you what, he was on a roll there for quite a number of years, and me and Johnny kid a lot. He's won a couple features this year, and we kid a lot in Victory Lane during the interviews that, we've been doing this a long, long time, dating clear back to Sunset Speedway, and, go back a lot of years. Our fathers were both involved in racing as officials, and he's a great guy. They built some great race cars down there, and he's still one tough competitor. And looking to the future, his 14-year-old son, Jackson, in the A modified division, he's going to keep the Sadoff name around forever, I think. So it's good to see Johnny also in the top 5. Mountain Dew Kickstart IMCA Sport Compact feature. Boy, this one was a slugfest last night. The guys from Beatrice were in town full force, and they drove their way up to the front, but man, not without a fight. Dylan Richards picked up the win, and he's got a pretty good run in that national point standings deal, and I think he's chasing points, chasing tracks that's got big car counts, and of course we always have a pretty good feel of the sport compacts at Eagle. So Richards takes the win. Ramsey Meyer, who usually is pretty tough, he's been dabbling in the modified division, sport modified division at area tracks, but he was back in a sport compact last night, and that was a war up there toward the front of the field. You had 3 Beatrice guys, Zach Bollmeyer, Drake Bollmeyer, Dylan Richards, and I'll tell you what, they were working Meyer over pretty good, I think, toward the end of that race, but Richards prevails. He takes the win. Ramsey Meyer comes home in the second spot. Then it was Zach Bollmeyer, Drake Bollmeyer, and slowly but surely your points leader and 2-time defending champion Cole Creco in car number 30K. He rounds out the top 5 finishers in that one. So, you know, a very entertaining race for the fans, and very, very tough and close race coming down to the final checkered flag coming off corner number 4. That moves us up to the Race Saver IMCA Sprint Car Division. And, you know, the guy he started out season driving a borrowed car, getting his own team and put back together, Doug Lovegrove. He picked up the championship for the first time down at Eagle in 2015. Since he's came out with his own race car back again about 4 weeks ago, he's been hanging around that front stretch up on the podium, but he hasn't picked up the win. Last night he comes out of the 5th starting position, picked up a well-deserved A feature win. And when you talked about Ben Schaller running that bottom, one of the guys that runs Eagle Raceway down around the bottom side, probably as good or better than anybody, is Doug Lovegrove. He keeps that car very straight underneath him, and he's very fast down around the bottom side of the racetrack. And he had a pretty good run last night. He picked up the A feature win. Tyler Drucke, coming out of the 8th starting position, finished in the 2nd spot. Your points leader, Adam Gullion, from 10th, finishing 3rd. Clint Benson, who now is up to 2nd in the points, he started back in the 5th row, finished in the 4th spot, made the final podium on the front stretch there. But I got to give a call, Boyd Peterson. I started on the pole, but this is about his maybe 2nd or 3rd full year in this Race Saver division, come out of go-karts directly into sprint cars, and his best run of his career with a 5th place finish. But the show, you got to talk about Trevor Grossenbacher. Started back in the 6th row. Grossenbacher got up to 6th spot at the end, but I got to give a call. My guy, we started 19th in the feature last night. Cody Ledger, you talked about him in the 360 deal up at I-80 Speedway. He got my car up into 7th, and he and Trevor had quite a race there, battling it out to the checkered flag. So he was the Danny Lasowski coming from the rear of the field, and passed a lot of cars, and the car finally acted like a race car last night, and I think we got something to build on. So Cody comes home in the 7th spot. Got to give him a call. So it was a great night of racing down there. Good crowd. Pretty nice night. Nice breeze blowing, and Spectrum Sports was on hand, captured all the action. You can check that out on demand starting Tuesday down in Lincoln. But another great night of racing, and probably the only downside, you know, we got the Race Saver Nationals coming up Labor Day weekend. Our Silver Dollar Nationals. And the entries are starting to pile in. I believe we're up around 65 entries already, and still a month to go before that thing takes place. Last year we had 117. And like you said, the atmosphere, there's a lot of other stuff going on. They've got concerts every night after the races. They've got a dodgeball tournament, a golf tournament, a manufacturer's row where people can see all the vendors and a lot of the sprint car products that are available, campgrounds available with power, and we're looking forward to that one. Brandon Bosma came down from Minnesota and wanted to test out Eagle Raceway, and he did make the feature up out of that B main event, but unfortunately he got involved in a little incident down in turn 1 and bent the wing on that thing pretty good. Took about 4 or 5 endos over in turn 2, but hopefully he'll be back, and welcome to Eagle Raceway.
Hey, Stan, with the heat and everything and the big race going up the block, did that hurt you guys' car count any?
Well, we were maybe down just a little bit. And the only class that I really noticed it in was the sport modifieds. And I know there was also another big race. I think they were having a big race for sport mods. I don't know if it was Albion or at another track somewhere.
Yeah,
Albion had one, but they didn't have any cars there. We got somebody
12?
told us, they had like 12 cars, and we're paying $750 to win. So
that's incredible, because I mean we still had 3 full heat races, I think, so probably close to 30 sport mods. Normally we're up around 45, and that was the only class we were really down in. You know, I mean everything else was good. We had 3 heats in every class. We had 3 B main events and 5 great A features, and we were done at I believe 9:35. We were doing interviews on the front stretch, and so a 3-hour show on a hot night,
on bike night to boot.
On a bike night to boot, and you know I would have made it up a little earlier, but we were racing that night, so we had to load the car and do some PR down in the pit area after the A feature.
Stan, we always do appreciate the time, keeping us up to date with America's Home Track. We'll talk to you shortly. We'll probably talk to you next weekend. We're live again.
Sounds great, man.
Thank you very much. Have a good Sunday.
You bet. You too.
We're going to take a break. We'll come back in turn number 4, and we'll wrap this baby up here on the front stretch.
Are you looking to book your next outing? Look no further than Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs. Located just north of Bass Pro Shop, Joe's Karting can handle outings of well over 100 plus people. Bachelor parties, corporate outings, team building, birthday parties, and much more. Give Buddy a call today and reserve your outing. Joe's will even work with local restaurants to cater your event. Book yours today at joeskarting.com. That's karting with a K. It's time to get to Joe's and find out what everyone already knows.
The official watering hole of the front stretch has you covered any day of the week with the best wings, great burgers, and amazing steaks. Each weekday from 4 to 6 is happy hour, featuring $1 off draft and well drinks plus $4 Luberitas. Mondays are kids' night. Tuesdays are all-you-can-eat wings for $12.95, and the lube even delivers to the Council Bluffs area. Like Quaker Steak and Lube Council Bluffs on Facebook for a full list of weekly events.
Got to Quaker Steak and Lube.
Mid-America Drive, Council Bluffs.
Dan and Dirk are live for one last corner. Give them a call now at 402-573-0590.
We should now change that to Dan and Dirk are live for one last minute, because we can never seem to pace turn 4 outright.
Yeah, but we don't get paid to do that.
That's true.
We get paid to entertain.
Oh, we should probably start doing that one of these days. Turn 4 brought to you by Quaker Steak and Lube at Council Bluffs, the official watering hole of the front stretch. You can catch the Brickyard 400 at Indy on the big screens today at 1 o'clock. Coverage starts at 1 o'clock. The race starts at 2 o'clock. We want to say a big thank you to Quaker Steak and Lube for putting the Mud Summer Classic / Dirt Derby / whatever they're going to decide to call it for the 4th year in a row. Truck Series race at Eldora on the big screens on Wednesday nights. Had a nice little crowd show up and enjoy the race because Facebook blew up at about 5 o'clock. Where's the truck race at? Where's Eldora at? Where?
We've only been advertising it for over a week. And,
it's okay. You don't have to pay attention to where things are.
Yeah. Fox Business Network.
I literally was sitting there on my phone during every caution, which was a lot, typing to friends, come to Quaker Steak and Lube, just down the road. Anyway, so thanks again to our friends down at Quaker Steak and Lube for doing that. This coming Wednesday night is bike night, and they're doing a special bike night where they're going to do a do a slight fundraiser to Crash Davis, who is battling cancer. All right, let's talk about the Crewman for a Day contest really quickly. We've only got a couple of minutes left in the show. Congratulations to Tara Ackerson, who ended up winning the contest just ever so slightly. She had a 4-point victory over second place Laura Sorensen, and third place Shala ended up with tied with Laura, but because Laura had the better top threes, she ends up getting the second place finish, which really doesn't matter because everybody second through fifth ends up getting the same prize. Paul Larson finishes fourth, and Tom Preston rounds out your top 5, kind of rolling through how those things rolled out. But a really cool contest, and it's always interesting to watch those things unfold from the background because you see guys that are Crewman for a Day contest leader 3 weeks in, week number 4 fell very, very hard.
Yeah, he took a big dive, and actually what saved the winner this week, what saved Miss Tara was Kyle Busch getting a second speeding penalty. If he just would have suffered just the first one, the first 2 places would have been turned around. So
we are in the midst of finalizing our final Crewman for a Day contest at Kansas Speedway. We've got verbal permission from the track that everything's going to be a go. We weren't expecting any hiccups with that. We're now working on getting a team, which next weekend we're live at Iowa Speedway. We hope to have that locked down.
Correct, yeah. We've got a couple we're going to talk to, and we'll make sure it's something good.
Don't forget Jimmie Johnson starting from the back today for the Brickyard 400 at Indianapolis.
Kyle Busch going for his 3rd Brickyard in a row starting from the pole, but he won't end up there.
I know. He apparently now hates that NASCAR is changing the car to slow him down.
Well, of course.
This is all the conspiracy to slow down Kyle Busch. It has nothing to do with helping the racing, which, by the way, if there's
nothing
any
to do
hint,
with slow down anybody else.
Right.
It's just going to slow him down.
Right, absolutely. It's only his car. If there's any hint the way the Xfinity race went yesterday, I think we're in for, I'm going to say, a better race, which that's going to be pretty easy to do. The last couple of years at the Brickyard's been pretty rough to watch, so we'll have to see how this goes out.
Yeah, I haven't got to read a bunch of the driver reviews. They said the drivers had a lot to say about it, but I haven't got to read up on that yet. And
drivers had a lot to say?
But, yeah. But they said what NASCAR needs to listen to is what the fans have to say.
Yeah.
And they've been listening to the drivers, which they never used to do that either.
Yeah.
So Maybe if they start listening a little more to everybody. But like I said, they're rolling a lot of different pieces in place at the top of NASCAR. So it's going to be kind of different for a little bit.
This aero package, by the way, if you want to see what we're talking about with the new aero package that they have for the front of those the Monster Energy Cup cars, go to our Facebook page, scroll down. There's a video that NBC posted of it, and it's really interesting. I think that if this works out at Indy, we're going to see it at a couple tracks like Kansas, where clean air is king, and it'll start to open up better passing second, third onto the leader, and this could be something that would be heavily implemented in the what would be Gen 7 car that's supposed to be coming out in 2019.
Yeah, Steve Letarte does a real good job of explaining exactly what's going on with this new aero package, and I mean, there's kind of like some vents and stuff they put in the front of the car. And a little bit different design spoiler. It's a little bit bigger, but it's not huge, and it makes the air tumble off the back.
Yeah. This is a high downforce package. We've been talking about
low drag package.
Yes, it's basically to open up a window so that it's kind of like what they do at Daytona, where there's this big envelope that opens up behind the other car and they suck up and draft off of it. But now with this front area, it pushes the air out on the side of the car. So and we'll have to talk about this another day and kind of recap it next weekend live at Iowa Speedway. We appreciate everybody saying hi to us at the Silver Dollar Nationals and coming up to talk to us and showing support for the show. We'll do it again live next weekend from Iowa Speedway. For Dan Taylor, that's Dirk Houston. This is The Front Stretch on AM 590 Omaha's ESPN Radio.
This has been The Front Stretch Radio Show, presented by Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs. To contact Dan or Dirk, find them on Facebook at The Front Stretch or email them at frontstretch590@gmail.com. If you missed any part of today's show or want to hear a previous show, subscribe to the Joe's Karting YouTube page, where you can find almost every Front Stretch show.
Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs has taken a page out of IMCA's rulebook and gone crate. These brand new low-emission engines will still have you white-knuckling it all through the Metro's fastest indoor facility. Joe's Karting is now friendly for all skill levels with their brand new Honda-powered engines. It's time to get to Joe's today and find out what drivers like Jack Dover, Shaylee Bate, and Andrew Kosiski have known for years. Located in Council Bluffs and online at joeskarting.com. That's